All right, folks, today we're going to be learning about the characteristics of living things. We've talked already about some things that are living in like cells, but now I want to talk about exactly what makes something living. What are the characteristics, what are the specific criteria that something that's living needs to meet? Because in order for something to be considered living, it must meet certain criteria. So you can see the plant, the cell, all the animals down there, they're all living, but what criteria is it that actually makes them living? And the first one's energy utilization. So all living things obtain and use energy to power activities such as growth, movement, and repair. That energy can be from the sunlight ultimately, or food, as you learned last year. Second one is order and organization. So all living things are composed of cells. Remember the cell theory. Multicellular organisms have various levels of organization. You can see here in the diagram there are some specialized structures like tissues that cells have formed, and the tissue then forms the organs form a system, and all of these things form the entire organism. And each of these specialized structures have specialized functions as well. So that's what we mean by order and organization. There is first of all order, but they're organized in a way where a baby isn't just made up of a bunch of the exact same type of cell. The cells will form different organs and so on. Next thing we have is growth and development. So living organisms undergo changes in size and shape in a process called maturation, and you can see that in all three of these diagrams, one of an actual animal or really a human, another of the plant, and then you can see the plant cell and how it would grow in maturing. Next thing that's going to be characteristics of living thing is responsiveness. So living things respond and adapt to the environment. Examples of this could be escaping predators, migrating for food, plants moving towards light. And a quote from Charles Darwin says, "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change." And what he's really talking about is this idea of survival of the fittest. If you're not able to adapt to the things around you, then you're going to die. Sorry about that. If you guys were hearing someone crying, it was this little guy. This is my little Dashie. So he's now in our video as well. So he's awake. No more crying, hopefully. I'll have him here. Thank you, Mama. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is lifespan. So when a living thing can no longer carry out life functions, it will expire, as you can see with the cells up in the top right-hand corner, but they don't always get those crossy faces. They never get them, actually. I just drew them in there for fun. So the lifespan, this time period, varies for different species or different living things based on the availability of resources, the organization in the organism, and so on. Bottom left-hand corner, you can see those are actually dead skin cells. They're I don't want to say they're rotting, but they're very dehydrated. They're not getting the resources that they need, and so they end up dying. So they have a specific lifespan, and it's actually very short. That's why you see a lot of dry skin will happen on you, and dry skin is just going to be dead cells. So pick them off you, it really doesn't matter. Next, the ability to reproduce. So all living things give rise to offspring by means of reproduction, so either sexual or asexual, depending on if they're animals or plants, or some specific types of animals can reproduce all by themselves. And this perpetuates the species, so it allows the species or the cells that are reproducing to continue on instead of just becoming extinct and no longer being there. So if there's no reproduction that's allowed to take place, then there's going to be extinction, right? There's no reason for life to continue if it's not going to be reproduced. All right, next thing, living things have to give off waste, which is a byproduct of chemical reactions involved in performing life processes. So all waste is going to be a substance that is not needed or is not useful to the organism anymore. Example in our human bodies is that cellular respiration in the cells produce carbon dioxide, which we don't need to use, and our digestive system produces waste that's purged from the human body. Okay, last one we're going to talk about is homeostasis, and all living things maintain a near constant internal, so inside environment, despite changes in the external environment. A great example of this is the changing of the seasons. So when our seasons change outside, go from winter to spring to summer to fall, our internal body temperature really doesn't fluctuate or change that much. Neither does our pH levels or our heart rate. So we have the ability to adapt, and our human body has the ability, thank you for your commentary, to keep that regulated when things around us are changing. All right, so now going on to what's living, what's non-living, and what's dead. Something that satisfies all of the characteristics, okay, that we've talked about is considered living. So an example of that is animals, or this little guy. If it satisfies a few of the characteristics, it does not necessarily mean it's living. So for example, rocks, or this telephone. Right? The telephone can make noise, it can give off energy, it needs energy to work, but it's not alive for other reasons. It doesn't meet all of those criteria. And something is dead if it satisfies criteria of something that was once living. So I have a butcher block right here. It's made out of bamboo. Bamboo was once living, but it's no longer living, so it's made of dead material. Okay, and she's getting a little fussy here. But before we are done, we're going to talk about the Martian and the car debate. And really what you're going to ask, or what we're going to be asked to do, is take the part of this Martian's defense attorney. He got in trouble. Sheldon, be quiet. Marty the Martian was sent to Earth by the Martian government to find life. While on Earth, Marty captured a car and brought it back to Mars. He thought he'd found a good example of life on Earth. The Martian government doesn't believe him, though. So they say that it's not alive. Marty must stand trial for failing to perform his Martian duties of finding life. So at the trial, Marty spoke in his own defense. He said, "I first saw these life forms rolling around roads in great numbers. They were giving off thick clouds of poisonous waste as they moved. They seemed to exhibit herding behavior as many of the cars moved in the same direction. They appeared to have a great deal of energy. Some of them moved faster than 60 kilometers per hour. When one of these life forms stopped or slowed down, the others behind it responded. They slowed down and gave off a reddish light from the back, and sometimes they would make honking noises. I observed that they would stop to feed on a liquid substance. Take the part of Marty's defense attorney and make a good case for the cars being alive. List as many reasons as you can." All right, so Dashi and I are going to say goodbye so that you guys can do this work. Okay, thanks.